Have you ever stumbled upon something that made you question everything you thought you knew? Across the world, mysterious artifacts and strange rock paintings have been found that just don't fit the usual story of human history. Some even hint at the possibility of alien visitation in the past. From India to Australia and even Egypt, the mysteries just keep coming. Ancient alien rock art. If humans have never encountered aliens before, why in the world are there 10,000-year-old rock paintings in India that seem to depict just that? That's right. These paintings were discovered scrawled along the walls of a cave within the dense forests of Chhattisgarh. But do they really feature extraterrestrials and UFOs? I'll let you decide. This fascinating story began when archaeologists stumbled upon this ancient art near Charma, a small town in India's tribal Bastar region. The paintings were mostly of humans and animals in everyday scenes, but some of them were unlike anything they'd seen before. Among the familiar images, there were bizarre depictions of humanoid figures with indistinct facial features, often missing noses and mouths. Some appeared to be wearing what looked like helmets or even spacesuits. Others held strange weapon-like objects. And then there were the UFOs, disc-shaped objects with what looked like legs or rays coming out of them. Yeah, if I saw something like that before phones were invented, you better believe I'm drawing a picture of it. Archaeologist J.R. Baggett, who has closely studied these paintings, thinks they might represent extraterrestrial visitors. The figures are large and often shown descending from the sky, as if ancient humans believed these beings came from beyond our world. According to Baggett, these paintings suggest that people 10,000 years ago might have believed, or at least imagined, they weren't alone in the universe. What makes this even more mysterious is the local legends. Residents in the area have stories passed down from their ancestors about the Rohela people, or the small-sized ones. This group supposedly came down from the sky in round flying objects and abducted villagers. Some locals even worship these ancient paintings, honoring the mysterious visitors they believe once came to Earth. But of course, not everyone is convinced that these figures are aliens. Some say they could just be imaginative artwork, maybe even shamans with their antennae or spirit rays. These symbols are common in spiritual or shamanic art worldwide. But Baggett and his team want to know more, so they've called on experts from the Indian Space Research Organization to dig deeper. Are these paintings evidence of ancient contact with extraterrestrials, or were our ancestors simply dreaming up cosmic visitors long before sci-fi movies existed? What do you think? For now, the mystery remains, hanging in those caves like a puzzle waiting to be solved. But I'm not done yet. Next up, I have even more potential evidence of extraterrestrials visiting our ancient ancestors. The mystery of the Abidos carvings. 1,000 years before the Wright brothers, the ancient Egyptians seemed to know a thing or two about flight. In the Egyptian city of Abidos, there's an ancient mystery etched into the ceiling of the temple of Seti I. Here, high on the walls, are hieroglyphs that seem to show helicopters, airplanes, submarines, and even what looks like a UFO. But how could there be images of modern or even futuristic technology in a temple from over 3,000 years ago? Could this mean that the Egyptians had contact with advanced technology, or perhaps even aliens? The story of Abidos and these carvings is as old as Egyptian history itself. Abidos was once a necropolis for Egyptian royalty, but it eventually became a place of pilgrimage where people honored the god Osiris. The Temple of Seti I, which was built by the famous pharaoh from the 19th dynasty, who is also the father of Ramses II, contains intricate carvings and a list of 76 Egyptian kings. But beyond these wonders, visitors have been captivated by the so-called helicopter hieroglyphs. Some UFO enthusiasts and ancient astronaut theorists claim that these carvings are proof that extraterrestrial visitors once walked among ancient Egyptians. These theorists believe that aliens may have influenced Egyptian culture, possibly even helping build grand structures like the pyramids. According to this view, the carvings depict advanced technologies from another time or world, preserved in stone by Egyptians who witnessed them firsthand. Could it be that these carvings are like ancient snapshots of UFOs and otherworldly vehicles? Egyptologists, however, offer a more down-to-earth explanation. They argue that these carvings are the result of an ancient writing method called palimpsest, where older hieroglyphs are carved over by new ones. This is usually done by a succeeding pharaoh marking their reign. This process of layering can create strange overlapping images. Egyptologists believe that these helicopters and submarines are actually random shapes formed by the erosion and overlapping of hieroglyphs over thousands of years. During Ramses II's rule, many carvings from his father Seti I's time were overwritten, which could explain the strange mashup of symbols. Of course, some people find this palimpsest theory unconvincing. They point to similar carvings found at other ancient Egyptian sites, like the Karnak temple, which also seem to resemble modern vehicles. Could all these images be just a coincidence? Believers in ancient astronauts argue that if carvings in multiple temples show what looks like modern technology, maybe the Egyptians really did have otherworldly inspiration. What are your thoughts on these mysterious hieroglyphs? Let me know in the comments down below. The oldest gold object. Smaller than a pea, older than the pyramids, and more valuable than gold. This tiny bead, unearthed in Bulgaria, is rewriting the history of human civilization. A tiny gold bead might seem insignificant, but it's actually believed to be the oldest processed gold object in Europe and possibly the world. It's only 0.2 inches wide and dates back to between 4500 and 4600 BC. Who would have thought that a bead no bigger than a pinhead could be such a big deal? The discovery was made in 2016 and has created a lot of buzz because it pushes back the timeline for gold craftsmanship even further than the famous Varna gold. This was a 13-pound collection of gold artifacts found in an ancient cemetery near Bulgaria's Black Sea coast. That discovery alone was groundbreaking. Why? Because the gold came from a time when people were just starting to master metalwork, despite being mostly farmers who had recently settled the area. But the tiny bead from Bulgaria suggests they were working with gold even earlier than previously thought. So how did these ancient people figure out how to process metals so quickly? Well, that's the big mystery. The bead was discovered at a site called Tel Yunat site, which is thought to be one of Europe's first urban settlements, an ancient city that dates back to 6000 BC. Archaeologist Yavor Boyatsayev, who led the dig, believes the bead was made right there, in this early urban center that was protected by a 9-foot-high wall. This wasn't just any settlement either. It was more like a prototype of a modern town, complete with houses and streets. Can you imagine ancient people crafting gold in what could be one of the world's earliest cities? It doesn't seem possible, does it? To add to the mystery, archaeologists have found over 150 tiny ceramic bird figurines scattered around the site. It's thought that these birds were used in religious rituals, showing that this ancient society had cultural practices as well as metalworking skills. However, Tel Yunat site didn't last forever. Around 4100 BC, the settlement was destroyed by invading tribes who swept in from the north and brought an end to this thriving community. Perhaps they wanted all the gold for themselves. What's amazing is that this discovery isn't just about a bead. It's part of a larger picture. Tel Yunat site and the Varna necropolis are linked to what some researchers are now calling a lost Balkan civilization. This Copper Age society may have pioneered extensive trade networks and possibly the first industrialized metal production. They may have even left behind some of the earliest known symbols that could be a form of writing. So this little gold bead is way more than just a piece of jewelry. It's a clue to a much bigger mystery about early human societies in Europe. Who were these people and how did they become such skilled metal workers so early on? Do you have any clue? And now for a quick break. But first, I wanted to give a shout out and big thank you to John Mikas and David Pendleton for supporting this channel. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like this. Sangshin Dui bronze masks. Why would anyone deliberately break and then burn hundreds of ancient artifacts? Could it be that someone was trying to cover something up and get rid of the evidence? In 1926, a farmer in the village of Sangxindui in Sichuan, China, stumbled upon some relics made of stone and jade from the 12th century BC. Then 60 years later, in 1986, 2 large pits filled with charred artifacts were discovered in the area. Among the artifacts were bronze masks that looked unlike anything anyone had ever seen before. Someone had attempted to shatter them before setting them on fire, but miraculously, several of them survived. And thank goodness they did, because these are some of the most interesting masks in the world. I know what you're thinking. What makes these masks so fascinating? Well, first off, they're gigantic and different from every other piece of art from ancient China. With features like bulging eyes, broad ears, and elongated faces, some of these masks are as big as small cars. They have an alien-like quality to them, leaving researchers with questions like who or what were they meant to represent. The masks were likely crafted by the ancient Shu civilization, a mysterious Bronze Age society that flourished from between 1250 and 1100 BC before mysteriously vanishing. But sadly, there's no written record of the Shu, no human remains at the site, and no evidence that could explain what happened to them. For some strange reason, poof, a whole civilization disappeared, leaving behind only these puzzling relics. These masks were crafted with a level of skill not usually seen in ancient Chinese art. They were crafted with techniques more commonly associated with Greek or Egyptian art than with Chinese artifacts from that period. This craftsmanship has led many to call the Shu people pioneers in their own right, though we still have no idea how they acquired these skills. The items found in the pits included almost 100 ivory tusks, along with jade, ceramics, bronze statues, and figures of animals and trees, all meticulously crafted and placed. Mainstream archaeologists believe the items were ritually burned and buried, suggesting they were left as offerings. But why would anyone destroy such beautiful creations? Was it a part of some ceremony, or did the Shu people fear these objects held some kind of power? No one knows for sure. For all anyone knows, there could be a different explanation entirely. Maybe the Shu had nothing to do with the destruction of these relics. What do you think? Some think the masks may depict Shu rulers or shamans, while others believe they represent deities or supernatural beings. The protruding eyes and strange expressions have led to theories that the Shu were worshipping powerful animal spirits or forces of nature. But another fascinating theory suggests that these masks could symbolize beings from other realms, which has fueled plenty of alien theories over the years. Adding another layer of mystery, geologists think that an earthquake might have caused the Shu civilization's sudden disappearance. This natural disaster could have forced them to abandon their city and leave behind their artifacts. But what's even more intriguing is the name Sangxindui, which means 3-star mounds. And guess what? At the site where the masks were found, archaeologists discovered 3 mysterious mounds. According to legend, these mounds were created by a heavenly emperor who threw handfuls of earth down to the ground. Archaeologists believe the mounds were actually ancient city walls buried over time, but that's still up for debate. These bronze masks are still some of the most mysterious artifacts in archaeology, leaving us with endless questions. Who were the Shu? Why did they create such strange artifacts? And why did they vanish without a trace? The Mesolithic PES canoe. In a humble village, a chance discovery would transport us back to the dawn of human innovation, a time when our ancestors harnessed the power of nature to explore the world. In 1995, a construction worker was clearing peat for a new highway near the small village of Pesse in the Netherlands when his excavator pulled up what looked like a rotting tree log. At first, he thought nothing of it, but a local farmer named Hendrik Vonders was curious, so he took a closer look, and to Vonders' surprise, this log had unusual marks, almost as if it had been carved by human hands. Little did he know he was inspecting what would soon become the oldest known boat in the world. Vonders took the log to the University of Groningen, where researchers determined that this was no ordinary log. It was an ancient dugout canoe estimated to be around 10,000 years old. To put that in perspective, this boat was built around 8000 BC during the early Mesolithic period. Now, what exactly is a dugout canoe? Well, as the name suggests, it's a boat made by hollowing out a single tree trunk, in this case a Scots pine. This canoe measures about 10 feet in length and has a narrow, flat-bottomed design that could float easily in calm waters like lakes or marshes. Carbon dating placed its age between 8040 and 7520 BC, making it a revolutionary find for researchers studying the prehistoric use of boats in Europe. Before the PES canoe, little was known about boat use in the Stone Age. Not everyone believed that this was actually a canoe, though. Some skeptics claimed it could have been a feeding trough for animals or even an ancient bathtub. To settle this, archaeologist Jaap Buker from the Drents Museum decided to build a replica of the PES canoe in 2001 and test it on water. Sure enough, his replica floated perfectly, proving that the original PES canoe would have been capable of carrying someone down calm waters. The design was simple but effective for hunting, fishing, and gathering along riverbanks. But the PES canoe isn't the only ancient boat of its kind, although it is the oldest. A similar dugout canoe found in Dufuna, Nigeria was also carbon dated to around 8,000 years ago, making it the second oldest boat discovered. The similarities between the PES and Dufuna canoes strengthen the idea that early humans worldwide were exploring waters for resources much earlier than previously thought. The PES canoe, a time capsule from the Stone Age, also brings up interesting questions about preservation. Why did this wooden boat survive so long without rotting away? Well, the answer lies in the peat bog where it was found. The bog's low oxygen environment kept the wood from decomposing, and once researchers had the canoe, they used freeze drying to remove moisture from its wood fibers, preserving it for display. It makes you wonder, could someone have left the canoe in the bog for a reason? Did they want someone to find it in the future? It's definitely a possibility. The Vonica astronauts. If aliens visited Earth in the past, they didn't just stick to one area. Depictions of otherworldly beings can be found all over the place, and Italy is no exception. High up in the scenic mountains of Valcamonica lies one of humanity's greatest mysteries. Over 300,000 ancient rock carvings, or petroglyphs. Stretching back more than 10,000 years, these drawings were created by a mysterious people known as the Comuni. And get this, some of these carvings depict figures that look a lot like extraterrestrials, complete with shining helmets and trident-like tools. Is it possible that these ancient artists actually encountered something out of this world? It's like Chhattisgarh and Abidos all over again. These rock carvings cover nearly every surface in the valley. The carvings themselves have survived thousands of years and multiple civilizations, from prehistory to medieval times. In fact, Valcamonica was the first site in Italy to be recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. That fact alone should show you just how important these carvings are to our understanding of ancient human history. Many of the drawings are so strange that they've left historians, archaeologists, and even UFO enthusiasts scratching their heads. Most of the carvings were made using a technique called martellina, where ancient artists chipped away at the rock with stone tools. Among the countless images, we see scenes of hunts, religious ceremonies, animals, and geometric symbols. But one figure in particular has grabbed everyone's attention, the so-called Valcamonica astronaut. This figure appears human-like, but with what seems to be a helmet on its head. It's also holding a trident or some other three-pronged tool. Does this sound like an alien, or perhaps an ancient god? The mystery only deepens when you realize that similar figures have been found in ancient artworks across the globe. In Egypt, India, and South America too. We just learned about some of them at the beginning of the video. So what's going on here? Some researchers argue that these astronaut figures could be representations of gods or mythological beings. Others, however, believe they might indicate contact with extraterrestrials. The Comuni, who lived in the valley thousands of years ago, left behind little besides these petroglyphs, so we don't know a lot about their beliefs. Historians have pointed out that the helmeted figure resembles certain deities worshipped by other ancient civilizations, like the horned god Cernunnos of the Celts. And this raises the question, did the Comuni share similar beliefs with other ancient cultures, or were they inspired by something even stranger? Another recurring symbol in Valcamonica is the Rosa Communa, or Communion Rose, a swirling shape resembling a flower or perhaps a spiral galaxy. It's strikingly similar to the swastika symbol, which has been found in rock art from other continents and has been linked to both sun worship and cosmic cycles. Some even believe this Communion Rose could be an illustration of a flying vehicle, maybe even a UFO. Today, the mysterious shape is actually the official symbol of Lombardy, the region where Valcamonica is located. In the 1930s, the site attracted scholars from Germany and Italy. Some, like Franz Altheim, tried to interpret the carvings through ideological lenses, even suggesting they showed an Aryan heritage, an idea now rejected by historians. Thankfully, though, in the 1950s, a more serious study of the carvings began. Emanuele Anati, an Italian archaeologist, catalogued thousands of the carvings, helping to decipher the rich yet cryptic story they tell. Another fascinating aspect of the Valcamonica carvings is their resemblance to art from ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia. The solar disk, a symbol commonly associated with the Egyptian sun god Ra, appears in several carvings. This hints at a shared symbolic language across early civilizations. Some have even noted a similarity between the Valcamonica carvings and the Egyptian Ankh, a symbol of life. Could these common symbols point to early trade or shared myths, or were they part of some universal language? The mystery of Valcamonica may never be fully solved, but that's part of the fun, don't you think? Europe's Ice Age Queens. Why does the Venus of Hohlefels figurine look like a mix between a roasted chicken and a woman? The story of Europe's Ice Age Queens begins around 40,000 years ago in the freezing depths of what is now Germany. Imagine a dimly lit cave where a group of hunter-gatherers huddles close to a fire, while outside, saber-toothed cats and mammoths roam the icy plains. Picture a woman holding a small, mysterious object. A tiny figure carved from mammoth ivory no bigger than her palm. This isn't just any trinket. It's the Venus of Hohlefels, possibly the oldest sculpture of a human ever found. But what does it represent? And why did these ancient people create it? The Venus of Hohlefels was discovered in 2008. It was pieced together from 6 tiny fragments of ivory that had been buried deep in a cave. The figurine, just about 2 inches tall, had no face. Just a loop where a head might have been, as though it was meant to be worn as a pendant. But this wasn't the only Venus figure out there. Since the 19th century, hundreds of similar figures have been unearthed across Europe and Asia. These Venus figurines, as they're called, share several traits. They're usually headless or faceless, with exaggerated hips, breasts, and other features associated with fertility. And what's really interesting is that nearly all of them appear to be female. Honestly, they kind of look like the main course of a Thanksgiving meal. Why did ancient people craft these curvaceous little sculptures? Are they symbols of fertility? Spiritual tokens? Or could they be the first examples of prehistoric art created simply for beauty's sake? One theory is that these figurines were crafted as representations of fertility and motherhood. The exaggerated features, the large hips, rounded bellies, and prominent breasts might have been symbolic of childbearing and survival. Living in the harsh Ice Age, where survival was far from guaranteed, these symbols could represent the hope for healthy offspring and community resilience. According to one idea, the Venus figurines may have even served as protectors of the hearth. When early hunter-gatherers moved around, maybe they left these figures behind in seasonal camps, like a good luck charm to watch over the place until they returned. Others believe they might reflect a more personal view of womanhood. Some researchers suggest that these figurines could be self-portraits made by women. Think about it. Without mirrors, a woman carving her own body would see it from her own perspective, looking down and focusing on her torso, stomach, and hips, creating a naturally exaggerated view. It sort of makes sense, doesn't it? The similarities among these figurines, even when found thousands of miles and years apart, make them even more mysterious. For example, the Venus of Willendorf, found in Austria in 1908, dates back about 26,000 years. She too has no face, but features a detailed, almost woven-looking cap and the same exaggerated curves. But how did people separated by such vast distances and time periods share these stylistic choices? The Venus of Willendorf is also made from oolite, a limestone that likely originated in Italy, hundreds of miles from where she was found. This suggests that Ice Age people undertook long journeys or traded these objects across regions. But why? Some researchers have looked to the environment for answers. Richard Johnson, a professor who studies obesity, proposed that these figurines, created during cold periods, might have symbolized body fat as a form of survival. During times when food was scarce, being heavier meant a better chance of surviving the Ice Age winter. In this theory, the Venus figurines could have been idealized symbols of resilience and strength. They could have even represented revered Ice Age queens who managed to survive and protect their people. But what if they were just art? Katharina Rebay-Salisbury, an expert in prehistory, argues that perhaps the Venus figurines weren't meant to be understood at all in the way we try to analyze them today. Instead, she suggests that they likely served different purposes for different people. Some could have been personal charms, others community symbols, and some perhaps simply beautiful creations meant to capture the essence of the human form. What are your thoughts about these mysterious Venus figurines? What did they represent in your opinion? Let me know in the comments. The Gimpy Pyramid. Years ago in Gympie, Queensland, rumours of an ancient mysterious pyramid began to circulate. This wasn't a pyramid like those in Egypt, nor like the stepped structures in South America. Instead, the Gympie Pyramid was a sandstone ridge with its slopes cut into terraces that gave it a vaguely pyramidal shape. Was this a lost remnant of some ancient civilization, or just an overgrown hillside used for farming? Locals, archaeologists, and mystics alike couldn't quite agree, so the mystery only grew. Archaeologist Greg Jeffries became one of the pyramid's most passionate defenders. According to Jeffries, the Gympie Pyramid was much more than a leftover vineyard or settler construction project, as some skeptics argued. He noted that the terraces were built using enormous stones, some weighing over a ton, which would hardly be practical for simple farming. Besides, the structure's self-composition wasn't ideal for crops. It lacked any evidence of old grapevines or watering systems. Or in more simple words, this wasn't your average backyard project. Digging into the past, Jeffries and local historian Brett Green found even more peculiarities. Historical records suggested that the pyramid originally held carved stones, pillars, and even a round stone table. Settlers might have taken or destroyed many of these artifacts when Gympie became a gold rush town in the late 1800s. But other strange objects have popped up around the site over the years, like a statue of the Indian goddess Lakshmi and a Greek-looking urn. A stone carving of an ape-like figure known as the Gympie ape was also found here. Each artifact hinted at connections far beyond Australia. One of the most puzzling items found was a yellow stone head that many believed resembled South American sculptures. Could this mean that ancient travelers from distant lands once visited Australia? Jeffries suggested that long ago the area might have been accessible by sea, making foreign contact easier. Aboriginal stories also mention that the Gympie region was once a lush, water-rich area, a far cry from today's dry terrain. If this was the case, it makes it more believable that travelers might have found their way to this curious ridge. The mystery of the Gympie Pyramid isn't just about the physical evidence, though. Many visitors have reported strange experiences on the site, from feeling blocked from climbing the terraces to seeing ghostly figures. One particularly eerie apparition is a soldier in bronze armor who, according to some psychics, guards the pyramid. Others report encounters with a female guardian spirit named Nitala, who claims to have lived on the pyramid ages ago. It's almost as if these guardians want to protect the secrets of the site. Some psychics believe that the pyramid is built on a major energy line and serves as a vortex, pulling energy from the earth and radiating it outward. Some even claim to have experienced spontaneous healing on the site, which only fuels the belief that the pyramid has spiritual power. And for the most imaginative among us, one psychic, Michael English, suggested that the site was once a launch pad for alien spacecraft. Could he be onto something? Despite Jeffries' passion, Australian government officials continue to dismiss the Gympie Pyramid as nothing more than a remnant of the 19th century. They see it as an old vineyard structure, a simple piece of Gympie's settler history. And yet, the stories, artifacts, and strange energy around the site leave others unconvinced. Could the Gympie Pyramid truly be a relic of a lost civilization? Or is it simply a well-worn hillside with a colourful legend? What do you think? The Taren Dress. When you picture ancient Egyptians, what do you imagine them wearing? In 1912, an archaeologist named William Flinders Petrie made an amazing discovery in an ancient Egyptian cemetery. While digging in the Taren site near Cairo, he uncovered a bundle of linen that seemed like just another old textile. But this piece of linen would eventually be recognized as the oldest woven garment ever found, the Taren Dress. It wasn't until decades later in 1977 that this humble bundle was sent to the Victoria and Albert Museum in London for preservation. When researchers unwrapped the linen, they were shocked to find a perfectly preserved V-neck dress, complete with pleated sleeves. The dress was extraordinary, showing remarkable craftsmanship. But what was even more impressive was how well it had been preserved after thousands of years. That's right, thousands of years. Fast forward to 2015, when Dr. Michael D. from the University of Oxford decided to settle the mystery of its age. The team took a tiny sample from the dress and sent it off for radiocarbon dating. The results? Well, they blew everyone away. The Taren Dress was dated to between 3366 and 3120 BC, making it over 5,000 years old. This confirmed that the Taren Dress wasn't just ancient, it was the oldest known dress and the oldest woven garment in the world. But why is this dress such a big deal? Well, textiles like these are rare in the archaeological record because they're so perishable. Most ancient clothes are long gone, so finding something as complete as the Taren Dress is incredibly rare. According to Dr. Alice Stevenson, the curator at the UCL Petrie Museum, the survival of such a garment is exceptional. The dress came from the first dynasty of Egypt, around 3100 BC, one of the earliest periods of ancient Egyptian civilization. Now, you might be wondering, wasn't the oldest piece of clothing ever found in China? In 2014, archaeologists uncovered a pair of ancient trousers in a tomb in western China, which were about 3,000 years old. While those trousers were impressive, they were much younger. The Taren Dress pushes back the history of woven textiles in a huge way. It shows that the ancient Egyptians were crafting clothes like this long before other civilizations were. The discovery of the Taren Dress quite literally rewrote the history books. It not only revealed a stunningly old piece of clothing, but also offered a peek into the advanced textile-making skills of ancient Egyptians. They weren't just wrapping themselves up in large bundles of cloth. Nope, they were wearing fashionable clothing, sort of similar to what we wear today, the Gosford Glyphs. What are Egyptian hieroglyphs doing in Australia? Well, that's what researchers would like to know. About 37 miles north of Sydney, 300 mysterious carvings known as the Gosford Glyphs were found. These aren't random doodles or local art. They appear to resemble authentic Egyptian symbols. Could these glyphs be proof that ancient Egyptians visited Australia 5,000 years ago? Listen to this and let me know what you think in the comments. This unexpected mystery was first brought to light by Steve Strong, an Australian researcher with a background in archaeology. According to Strong, these carvings have nothing in common with any other rock art found in Australia. The engravings show intricate Egyptian symbols, including an ankh. The ankh is a symbol of life that's often associated with Thoth, the Egyptian god of knowledge. It looks like a traditional Christian cross with a loop at the top. Figures resembling the god Thoth himself, depicted with the head of an ibis and the body of a human, are also featured among the glyphs. Additionally, the site has carvings of various animals, a river of life, and even fish and dolphin shapes, which all seem unusually detailed and deliberate. But how did these supposed Egyptian carvings end up on the other side of the world? Steve Strong believes that these glyphs could point to an ancient Egyptian presence in Australia, possibly around 4,500 to 5,000 years ago. The idea is bold, to say the least, but Strong argues that the Egyptians could have come into contact with the Aboriginal people of Australia. In fact, some Aboriginal rock art near the site features unusual characters with human bodies and crocodile-like heads. These carvings, along with the hieroglyphs, suggest a potential cultural exchange that challenges our understanding of Australian history. Skeptics, however, are not convinced. Many mainstream Egyptologists and archaeologists argue that these glyphs are just graffiti created by modern travelers or enthusiasts trying to leave their mark. But if they were mere vandalism, how did these artists know so much about ancient Egyptian art? Some carvings even resemble an ancient version of Thoth in ape form, which only a seasoned Egyptologist would recognize. So it's a pretty complicated case of fake, if that's true. And if these glyphs are nothing but a hoax, explain why there's a local legend surrounding them. The Aboriginal people have long considered this area to be sacred, and nearby is a rock platform covered in ancient engravings of fish, snakes, and other shapes. According to Strong, these Aboriginal carvings combined with the Egyptian glyphs hint at a possible collaboration. He theorizes that if Egyptians really did visit in the past, they would have needed permission from the Aboriginal people to set up their carvings. Some even believe that the Egyptian hieroglyphs were meant as a memorial for a lost Egyptian prince, possibly one who died on Australian land. So what's the verdict here? Well, we don't know for sure. Are these glyphs proof of an ancient journey across oceans, or just a bizarre modern hoax? What do you believe? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And while you're at it, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.